All right, hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. So, now we got the real kicker, the therapy implementation, the big stuff. So, just to let everybody know that the assessment, what I went in the last video, the client assessment and treatment planning, those two are this is based on like the therapist client, what has to be done. And then in the book here, it goes through, I guess, a more general approach. So, I want to, unfortunately, we have this stuff and we have the book stuff to get through. So it's like a combination of everything you gotta know. But for the sake, just like for organizational purposes, we're gonna go through therapy implementation based on the competencies, because again, that's what's gonna determine the correct answer versus the best possible answer. All right, so we have therapy implementation. Recognize, interpret, and respond throughout the music therapy session. We have use music therapy experiences that address goals and objectives, provide verbal and nonverbal directions for clients, provide communication and expectations of behavior, utilize therapy verbal skills, use feedback, reflect, rephrase, and translate the client's communication, assess the client through effective communication, use musical experiences for pacing and sequencing, conduct group music therapy, implement music therapy according to treatment plan, promote a sense of group cohesion, develop and maintain the repertoire age appropriate, culturally appropriate, and stylistically different for the client, recognize and respond appropriate and effective clients' medications, and then maintain and work on new technology and implement as needed. All right, so this is the most important section. We are going to go through this briefly. All right, so respond to significant events in the music therapy session as they occur. By significant, okay, so when I read significant events, I automatically think of behavioral outbursts. And in the real world, that's not what they mean. Well, even in exam terms, that is not what they mean by significant events. Significant event could be like a seizure, or them automatically singing, or automatically not singing, or just staring into space. That could be a significant event. Use music therapy experiences that address and assess goals and objectives. Okay. In the real world, not every activity has to be for the objective. Okay, like, I mean, think about it. Like, if I'm doing math homework for my finance class, like, if I watch every single time value of money video out there, like, my brain for 45 minutes, my brain is gonna explode. Like, I can't handle that one concept just drawn, even if it's explained in a million different ways. I still do not want to hear about that topic for 45 minutes. I'm gonna start like not listening and not learning. Okay, so like, think about that from the client. First of all, the client is not mentally they didn't sign up to take this course. Okay, somebody told them that they needed to go for a music therapy assessment, and they're just doing it. Okay, so like, if they're having language issues, they're not gonna want to work on their speech for 45 minutes straight, regardless of like how many different ways, how many different songs, how many different syllables. Like, they're not gonna want to hear it. So like, it's good to do like if they're if we're doing communication, it's good to do like 2 sessions working with communication and then do like 2 movement sessions, give them a break, then go back. Like, but for the purpose of the exam, we're gonna have to drill those poor clients with their goal area, unfortunately. All right. Provide verbal and nonverbal directions. Nonverbal directions is one of the most important concepts in music therapy. Like that's a good music therapist if you can give minimal verbal directions, but that's something that you need to train your clients. So like if you're coming right out of school and you try to do music therapy with like nonverbal directions and like using mostly music, which is ideal, 9 times out of 10 your clients, actually 10 out of 10, your clients are not going to understand because nobody probably did that before. Okay, but if like you've been working with these clients for 15 years, they know your style, they know your expectations, then like they'll be able to respond to your non-verbal directions. They'll be able to respond to your musical directions, but you just have to teach them. So keep that in mind. So we have verbal, nonverbal directions for cues, and then we have communication expectations of behavior. So those are 2 areas you're gonna have to teach your clients. That's why it's very important that you know them now. Reflect on the client's communication. So try your best to understand what they're trying to communicate to you, even if it's not so obvious. Most of the time, it will not be obvious. Assist the client in communicating. Again, teach them. Then sequencing and pacing of musical experiences. I think this was definitely tested in my internship, and I think it's tested on the exam as well, to like sequence and pace the musical experiences in a certain way. Now it just comes naturally to me, but that was something that I had to learn for sure. Then we have facilitate groups, implement music therapy according to the treatment plan. Again, that's just saying the same statement as the first one. And this one's really important. Maintain repertoire based on age, culture, and do different styles. So personally, I don't know if you guys can hear, but like I have a very low voice, especially when I sing, believe it or not. So I love doing songs in the key of D. D has always been my favorite key ever for a voice, always. Piano too, always. Guitar, don't even get me started. I love the key of D. And I was always taught when prepping for my senior recital, we were going to sing songs mostly in the key of D, or D sharp, or D flat, something around there, you know? So when I started to do music therapy sessions, of course, it was at the same time as my prepping for my senior recital, everything was in D. And then I got in trouble because like you can't always be playing in D for your client. They're gonna get bored. And yeah, it's true. They are gonna get bored. So give them something different. Give them a different key. Give them a different style. Make sure that your songs are age appropriate. I've had a lot of men, like older 35-year-old male clients, who love singing This Old Man. And it's like, okay, we can sing This Old Man at the end of the session, but you're a 35-year-old. You should be listening to this type of music. This type of music's age appropriate. So we'll get through the age appropriate stuff, and then as a reward, we'll play This Old Man. So keep that in mind. It is sometimes difficult when you work with older adults because they do act like babies, especially if they were injured really, really young, or like if they're really, really old and they're just so cute. You know how old people get to that stage of cuteness? It's very hard to treat them as adults. So make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, this one I got a little confused. Recognize and respond appropriately to effects of clients' medications. Oh yes, this is one I did not learn in school. I always had this one client who would fall asleep every single day. 10:05 he fell asleep. His session started at 10. 10:05 he would fall asleep. And I couldn't do anything with him. Found out that he got in influx of seizure medications. So like he was taking 2 seizure medications at 9, and they kicked in at 10:05 during my session. And the what happened was he always fell asleep when he got his seizure medication when it kicked in. So I actually had to go to the nurse and ask. I did make a proposal. I said you could bring him into session earlier, or you could give him his seizure medication later. And I forget what ended up happening, but I think he got his medication later, because then he started to doze off at the end of the session, which worked out fine, you know? But that's like totally a thing, and just make sure you talk to the nurse about it. I don't think that's a question on the exam though. Maintain and work knowledge of new technologies. Oh, technology is a wonderful thing. I use it all the time in my sessions. Unfortunately, my professor in undergrad knew nothing about music therapy technology. How horrible. Don't be that professor, okay? If any of you are looking to be a professor. So let's sum this up here. We have therapy implementation. All right, so our most important things is we want to teach and stick to communication, expectations, nonverbal directions, and musical cues for clients to learn and understand. Then we want to make sure that we translate, rephrase, and appropriately respond to clients' needs. Blah, blah, blah. Implement music therapy plan according to treatment. Oh, here we go. Appropriate repertoire and style for client age. And then make use of new technology. All right, moving on. Therapy evaluation. Design and implement methods for measuring clients' progress. Establish and work in a realistic time frame. Recognize changes and patterns in clients' response. Recognize and respond to situations that are clear and present. Change therapy approaches as needed. Review and revise treatment plan. Okay, so this is, of course, expected and important. I'm going to read here. Design and implement a method for evaluating client progress. Believe it or not, there are a million facilities out there. I'm exaggerating, but there are a lot of facilities out there that do not have an effective measuring of client progress. So, for your reference, you can either base it off of whatever your internship or clinical site does. For like, ask your supervisors what they do to evaluate progress for clients. I know that my internship had a very detail-oriented system, and it was very easy to replicate, and it wasn't copyrighted or anything. So that's what I personally use. Also, 2 girls from Temple Recreation Therapy, for their final project, they created a whole way to evaluate client progress. That's something that you do have to talk to your facility about if you don't have a measuring system, because I think you have to either buy the rights, or like you have to give certain parts of the evaluation to different departments, which like it's a wonderful thing, by the way. Like, it's a beautiful way to evaluate clients' progress. But I think you need to like I don't think it's just on you, and it does, I mean, it is copyrighted, so like that's something that you do have to talk to your facility about, but it is out there, and even though it's for recreation therapy, it definitely works for us. Okay, so I'm gonna write that down here. Then we have use an effective measuring of objectives. Then work in realistic time frame. I told you guys that 6 months, about 4 or 5 objectives within that 6-month period per goal. Then we want to recognize, this is extremely important, recognize changes and patterns in clients' response. I remember spring break. I don't know why, but I was at a facility that actually gave the clients spring break, and they would have a week off. And then they always, the week before and the week when they came back was just a train wreck. Like, it was impossible to like get them to reach their goals. And that's something to note. Like, you need to note, hey, having this week off really negatively affected 2 of our sessions out of the month. Okay, so like this client is not doing well because of that. It's not my fault. Okay, so you have to like make sure that you know what areas, and sometimes they can be like easy areas, like, oh, this person's family came and it really bugged them. Or sometimes it could be super hard, like this client had peanut butter and jelly for dinner and he's still mad about it the next day. Like, you know, so but you do have to keep that in mind. And then any positive changes, that's like extremely important for advocacy, because you know they're gonna pull us, you know, like, you know, we gotta advocate for ourselves, and they already think we're volunteers, so we gotta make sure that whenever there is a change or something doesn't go right, I mean, if it is your fault, like, own it. But if it's because somebody had peanut butter and jelly like 48 hours ago and they're still mad about it, you should like document that, so then that way you don't get penalized for something. Then we have respond to danger. This is also important, considering your clients could potentially have accidents and seizures in your group. Fun fact, right? I didn't know that when I was an undergrad. So respond quickly to client dangers, change treatment approaches as needed. It says here as they respond to therapy. And then, or I'm sorry, instead of change, I'm going to say revise treatment approaches as needed. All right, let's move on here. Documentation. Oh boy. Documentation, I used to hate it and now I love it. And now like all I want to do is documentation, because sometimes it can just be very overstimulating when you're working with clients all the time. Sometimes, at least personally, I want to do the documentation. Like, I need a break. Can I go in the office? All right, so we have provide documentation that accurately reflects client outcomes, meet reimbursement legal principles, document data, write professional reports, communicate in writing and orally to team members, document and revise treatment plan, develop and use data for gathering assessment, treatment, evaluation, and termination. Okay, so first of all, most important is to write down the treatment plan. Write down treatment plan. Okay, next we have write professional reports. That's the semi-annual, the 6-month, and the annual, the year reports. Everybody has to do that at all jobs. So you want to write report that is concise, objective, for sure, and accurate. And the thing with documentation is it's best to have your weekly, so first of all, let me back up. Every place does their documentation a little bit differently. Overall, though, you have to do documentation daily in order for the weekly, the monthly, the semi-annual, and the annual reports to be accurate. So it's always best to do daily documentation and then base that daily documentation, take that when applying it to these huge reports. That's like the most effective way to do documentation. All right, then we have here revised treatment plan, communicate treatment plan. So I'm going to say write down and communicate treatment plan for sure. Communicate. And then last but not least, use data gathering techniques for our favorite assessment, treatment, evaluation, and termination. All right, now, again, 21 minutes left. So let's review what we have so far. So we have respond to, well, we had therapy evaluation. So therapy evaluation, obviously you're going to respond to how the therapy is happening, what's happening, how is the client reacting? Are they reacting weird? Are they angry? Are they upset? Is it something that you did? Is it something that you need to fix? Maybe they don't like guitar in D. Maybe they want you to play it in F sharp and kill yourself. I don't know, but maybe that's why they're responding poorly. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe their family came to visit them and they're angry because their family's asking them for money. That happens all the time, by the way, unfortunately. So why is the client acting the way they are? Evaluate it. Do you need to change your method? Is there any danger? Does the client feel not safe in your session because another client threw something at them? I don't know. But whatever you find from the evaluation, make sure you review your original treatment plan and revise it. Documentation. Make sure your documentation is clear and accurate. Make sure it follows legal requirements. Your company will tell you basically how to document and what program to use, how to write certain documentation. Some places are more picky than others. Some places I was able to write my subjective opinion. Others you had to keep it all factual. It really just depends. Make sure you orally communicate what you wrote down. Nobody likes when somebody writes a report down and then they don't tell them verbally. Nobody likes that. Well, nobody wants to work with that person. And then last but not least, make sure you use your data collection technique that you developed or the one that you're using that I suggested. Use it to evaluate and document the assessment, the treatment, evaluation, and termination. Also keep in mind that each place that you work at they might have a different form for assessment, a different form for treatment, different for evaluation, different for termination. And then some places, like it all varies, but just like kind of have like a background in your mind just in case you're the first music therapist at a facility and you need to create these things. Just know that sometimes they're different and sometimes they're the same and sometimes they don't have anything for you because I don't know. So anyway, so that's what we covered here. In terms of the exam, I would say that accurate and legal documentation is definitely a thing that's mentioned. Accurate therapy processes and potentials to danger are definitely topics that are mentioned. Everything else is just like general knowledge. It's been 25 minutes. Okay. Remember, people, we got this. Saving the world one note at a time. I love all of you. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.